Hey there, hope you're doing good. Let's continue refactoring Futurecam. First, I'll submit a couple of changes which would otherwise cause compilation errors. The first is this pixel buffer dot width and height. Because it's optional, you need to put a question mark here, and then you need to handle the nil case by saying let's return 0. So this is one change I need to make. In fact, while we are at it, let's make a slightly bigger change, which is this. So let's look at the diffs. We have put it in the extension itself, because if you have a protocol with two different classes that implement it and they have the same function, then it should be in the protocol. So basically, just to show what I said, I don't know why this window likes to open off screen. Bug in Windows, I guess, because nobody would ever want Windows off screen. See, it has gone off screen again. Okay, cool. So you have, what is this called, AV capture photo or CM sample buffer, and you have two subclasses of it. So this is a protocol, so you have two classes that implement it or conform to it in iOS speak. Now this has width and height, this has width and height. When you have this, what you should do is you should move the width and height here, because now you have a unified interface. So let's see what we are doing. We have moved it to the protocol itself, and it is implemented by accessing pixel buffer, which itself is here. So it's good. This is just a to do. We can commit it, not worry about it. This file is deleted. You see the crossed out thing. This is removed. Yeah, this is an unrelated change. This should have been made earlier. So fix compiler errors. So now if you have a reference to this protocol, you can access its width and height without needing a reference to one of the concrete classes. Okay. Yeah, I think we accidentally removed UI image.save. This is the next compiler error we need to fix. I think it is in this file, UI image plus util. So if you go to GitHub, this is a thing that needs to be re-added, because we are invoking it from the liquid shutter controller. Here. Not a problem, we make occasional mistakes. Some of us have worked in companies where the coding standards are very high, but that shouldn't make you slow down. I mean, that shouldn't slow you down. Some percentage of commits you make will be wrong. That's okay. They may break the compilation, they may break unit tests. It's okay. Don't beat yourself up and become over conservative, which is a mistake I made, resulting in my peers doing more work and moving faster than me and getting rewarded for it. So, re-add your image.save. Let's look for some easy things to do. Let's look for unnecessary self qualifications and see which ones we can remove. This is not needed, it's not a closure. Just makes code a little harder to read. This is a closure, this needs it, this needs it. So let's look at the diffs. Oh, this is a closure, so this needs it. So we need to add it here. None of these need it. Okay, great. We are done with app delegate. This is a callback, needs it. This is just some if check, so we don't need it. I don't even know how to indent them. Is it 2 or 4? Okay. This is the callback of the button, the code that runs when the button is tapped. So that needs it. Here the name is the same, here the name is the same. This is a callback, this entire code. This is a callback. This is the same name, same name. This actually refers to the instance variable here, so I think we need it. Or do we need it? Hold on. I don't think so. I think capital S self is the type. Small s is not needed, and it's not a closure either. Okay. This is needed. This is a callback. 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 This is a callback. Oops. This is not needed. There isn't an argument called metadata to distinguish it from self.metadata. Excuse me. Yeah, here you are not referring to the argument, you are referring to this. Okay, fine. I don't know why you are doing this. This is odd. Oh, okay, okay, got it. No, it's fine. In both cases, you are assigning self.image. Okay, fine. This is needed, this is needed. This is a callback needed. This is needed, this is needed. This is again a callback. Yeah, this is needed because you have two different variables. This is a callback. call back, call back, call back, call back, call back. This is not needed. It's a if or a guard. Which file is this? Burst recorder. This we checked, this we checked, this too we checked, these we checked. I lost track of where I was in the file. Okay, I think we're done with this file. Yes, let's move on to the burst saver. These three are needed. This is asynchronous. This is just an integer, pending photos to save. So this doesn't need one. This is a callback. This is a callback. This is needed according to iOS rules or Swift rules. Okay, let's move on from burst saver to camera. This is a callback. This is not needed. There isn't a mode argument. This is not needed. This is not needed. This is not needed. This is needed. Again, there's no zoom level local. Oh, there is a zoom level local variable. This is needed. Callback. This is a callback. This is necessary. This is odd. You're saving it and then reassigning it. I think to trigger a KVO notification, key value observing is an iOS API. It's built into all objects, where you can observe any property, any stored property or instance variable of an object, and you'll get a callback. And the implementing class doesn't need to write code for it because it's built into NS object, the base class. Why are we This is bad code. You shouldn't copy it to a local variable and copy it back. What was I thinking? Since that is not the purpose of this refactoring, we shouldn't get sidetracked. We should just put a to do. Okay, we are done with this file. Now we are talking about we are looking at the fast video writer. This is async, this is necessary, this is necessary. Now we'll move on to the frame producer. These two are necessary. This is async, this is not necessary. This is all async. This is necessary. Now we are done with the frame producer. We'll look at the long exposure mode blender. Completed. You could remove self here, but it's okay. Yeah, you don't need this. This is not an async code. This is messy. This is just Xcode indentation gone crazy. Should be indented this way. Okay, this is not needed. There's only one metadata. Not needed, not needed. Okay, we are done with the long exposure mode blender. Now we'll look at the preview view. Again, not needed. These are animations, these are needed. This is needed. This is not needed because both are the same. This is not needed. These are async code needed. Not needed. Not needed. We are done with the preview view. Let's move on to the ZSL frame producer. This is a callback needed. Here there are two callbacks, so you do need to check. Let's move on to the controls controller. I don't think you need it. Plain. So basically you have a self reference, right? Let wing count equal to 2. Let engine count equal to, we used an IIFE there, so let's use the same thing whether or not it's needed. Return wing count into 2. Let's say there are 2 engines for each plane. Let p equal to plane, sorry, 2 engines for each wing. P dot engine count. Property initializers run before self is available. So then this code is not, oh, it's lazy. Okay, okay, fine. Let's see if it works. Lazy cannot be used. Oh man. Okay. This is again a deficiency in Swift. This will not be reassigned. So logically it should be a let. 4. Okay, so this works. You don't need self here, like we had here. This is async code. All this is async, async. Sheesh. Nesting. This is not needed. Okay, we are done with IAP controller. Let's look at the liquid shutter controller. My God, what code? This is a callback. This is a callback, callback. We are done with this. Now we look at main controller. These are all async. This is async. There is only one title. There is only one controls container view. There is only one whatever it is. I think we should change all the tabs to spaces. Don't know what's happening. Okay, never mind. This is async, async. Oops. Didn't we fix this? See, don't see, either all the parameters should be on one line or each should be in its own line, but you shouldn't have x in one line, y in one line, and width and height in another. This is again not async code. I should have imposed a self tax on my team. Penalize people whenever they write self unnecessarily. Sheesh. This is async. Does VS Code have column selection? Shift and Alt, okay. That's unintuitive. Can this go to the previous line? This is needed. These are async. This is needed. I don't know why we do this here. This is synchronous code, it runs immediately. So if you have some code here, or even here, if I write some code blah, this blah can run later. So by then it's possible that camera and self.camera are different, but they're not. This is never reassigned. This is async. Okay, we are done with main controller, which is probably the biggest class. This is callback code. Look at this iflet. This should have been guardlet, but we'll fix that later. See, too much nesting makes it hard to read. Okay, we are done with benefits view controller. Referral controller we are already done with. Now we'll move on to burst onboarding. Especially when you have too many of these, right? Self dot view dot bounds dot width. You want to make it less verbose. Okay, light trail onboarding. This is async. This can be cleaned up. I think the engineer just copy pasted here. This is async. This is sync. Now we'll move on to the liquid shutter onboarding. We are going to make the same changes. Now we'll move on to onboarding controller. Now we'll move on to time-lapse onboarding. Now we'll move on to AV capture device. These three are necessary. This is needed. It's a reference to a data type. It's capital S self. This is needed. Yeah, this is not needed. It's of course self. What else will it be? Now we'll move on to UI view. These are callbacks. Now we'll move on to abstract video mode. This is async. This is needed. This is async. This is async. Now we'll move on to long exposure mode. There is only one ease recording, so we don't need self. These are all async. and this is synchronous. Now let's move on to mode. Did we take care of this? Yes. This is needed. This is async. What? Oh, okay, fine, never mind. Yeah, this is all async code. Now we'll move on to this auto manual slider. Okay. This is async needed. Now we'll move on to before and after. So I think what we observed here was you can use self if you want, or you don't need to. So now we'll move on to the camera timer. There is only one text. Oh, 26 files. Okay. It's not too much more. The last screen full of results. This is controls view. This is async. Did we check this? Yes. Let's look at focus rect. These three are async. This is async. Let's look at main view. Okay, you are making a copy. It's a different variable. Mode selector, async, async, async. Okay, this is fine. Async, else. Oh, these are async. Too many hard-coded constants. The layout code in this app is a complete mess. Okay, now we are done with shutter button. Now we'll move on to better location manager. This is async. Now we'll move on to IAP service, which is also async. Awesome. Let's look at the diffs. All synchronous code. Hint manager just reflects. Synchronous code. Oops. Synchronous. So normally you would not do refactoring like this. You would refactor as the project keeps moving ahead, like in a real project. As you keep coding, you would keep refactoring as you encounter problems. So suppose you are rewriting some code, you may remove these unnecessary self-taught references. Now for the purpose of this YouTube video, this is a dead project. We are not working on it any longer. So that opportunity is not there. So this is the only way in which I can refactor this. But in a real project, yes, We can't say we'll stop developing features, let's spend 1 year fixing all the trivial issues. No, you would start working on features, and as you work on features, whatever technical debt you encounter that slows you down, you would fix, which is part of that goal. So if you are improving the time lapse mode, let's say that's a feature that you have been asked to work on, whatever problems you encounter in that process, you will fix. But something in the long exposure mode, you would not necessarily fix because it's not related to the task you are working on. That strikes a good balance between fixing code quality, fixing code issues and technical debt, and also velocity. Okay, let's do this. Oops. Oh, this is the same line. Okay. See how much cleaner it is. Add buffer. Preview view. Normally, you should not be committing changes to 28 files, but since they are all trivial and will not cause runtime issues, it's okay. And if at all 1 or 2 changes cause compiler errors, we can fix them. Oh, you have this code in controls controller as well as main controller. I think the engineer was lazy in using lazy. You don't need this, like it doesn't add any value. You use lazy if it is going to be extremely expensive to execute this code, like you are processing a gigabyte of data, or if this has some side effects which the user would notice. So for example, the microphone should be added only when the user switches to the video mode, because then when he switches to the video mode for the first time, he'll get a prompt, can this app use the camera? That's an example of lazy. If you don't do it lazily, if you do it eagerly, the prompt will come when the app opens, and the user may be like, hey, I didn't even ask for the camera, this app is spying on me, and he may lose trust. But other than that, don't put lazy randomly. Just make the code hard to read. I can only look at the left side of these diffs. As long as they are fine, it's good. In a way, even though this may be an annoying thing to watch for you in the video, removing all the self-references, this is an easier refactoring to make because there's very little chance of it going wrong. I sometimes prefer dumb work to smart work. Smart work can go wrong, can cause you to break your head, it can introduce bugs, etc. This is not even generic code, it's just normal code. So I don't know whether with generics you need to use self dot. I think you need to use capital S self dot, not lowercase s self dot. But in any case, here it doesn't matter. What? This is completely bad code. This is a variable of type void, and you're using an IIFE to initialize it. That's why this doesn't have any return. Oh, I think now I understand what the engineer was trying to do. He was trying to do this as a one-time code. The first time you use layout subuse, you need to do this. I don't know. Let me suspend judgment on this and we'll move on. There's a principle of least surprise. If there are two ways to do something and one of them will not surprise people, do that. Surprise is great in a mystery movie, but this is not a mystery movie. All right. Remove unnecessary self references. And I'll see you in the next